Everybody, welcome to Vikings Report Rewind, our live wild card pregame show as the Minnesota Vikings prepare to take on the Los Angeles Rams. Drew, Chris, I don't know if you remember, but back when Drew and I were kids, this was one of the most intense postseason rivalries in the NFL. The Vikings and the Rams met several times in the 70s. A lot was always on the line. This is going to be a big game. Winner moves on to play the Philadelphia Eagles in the city of brotherly love next weekend. And as always in the postseason, loser goes home. Drew, Chris, welcome. How we feeling tonight, boys?
Chris?
I mean, it's a little bit nervous time as far as it's I hate the fact that we had to wait until Monday night for this one to finally come around, but it's finally here, and hopefully we're going to get the result that we're hoping for, because it sure would suck for the season to end tonight. So, yeah.
Oh.
Any existential dread running through your veins right now, Drew Bunting?
I don't know what that means, but I got beer. I am looking forward to this. I will start out by saying there's no Giants, there's no Jets, there's no Falcons or Colts or Titans or the Bears twice. None of that matters anymore. Now we're playing quality football. We're in the tournament, and the Vikings got to get it going tonight because they had their do-over, Chris and Ted. That was last week, the do-over.
Yep.
There's no more do-overs, Chris.
Nope.
So they got to get it done tonight, but I'm happy. We got people in the chat already. They're fired up. I know they're fired up.
Yeah, they are.
I can hear them already. I can hear Nick Howard, and I think Nick Howard's at the game even. I think we got plenty of good mojo going on, and they're going to help us with the big board tonight. We are doing the big board for the first time live.
They are. Yeah, we are. And Ruby's got that all set up. She did a lot of work to get this to happen.
Yes.
So Ruby's in the back somewhere. So Ruby, thanks so much as always for making this show happen. A couple of quick admin notes as always. Hit up Purple Pain Forums. That's purplepainforums.com, our home away from home on the internet. Go to Chris's site, the Daily Norseman, dailynorseman.com, the Minnesota Vikings, SB Nation, Minnesota Vikings website. Drew, our season, nobody cares about your fantasy team contest has ended. Tell us who our winners are really quickly. Would you please, sir?
Dan Lee was the first place winner this year. He got that Jefferson jersey. He took home first. Doc Proto, who was leading probably 10 weeks of the season, he got second place. They're pretty close. He got second place, and Andrew Erickson took home third, which was the Sidney Rice signed jersey.
Nice.
And Andrew Erickson only finished, I think it was 15 points behind Proto for second. So it worked out. The new scoring worked out throughout the season. I wanted to thank everybody for playing. Those were our top three paid out winners, but it was Dan Lee this year who took that home. And I got a little update on the Rook Dog Challenge, Ted. We took the picks back in summertime. We had a lot of picks for that tournament. That was a $200 payout. All you have to do, pick the offensive rookie of the year and the defensive rookie of the year. Well, 3 people on the list picked the offensive rookie of the year, which hasn't been announced yet, but I already know who it is.
It's going to be Jane. If it's not Jaden Daniels, that's a high crime and misdemeanor. I'm sorry. It just is going to be.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong for even announcing that the contest is over, but I think he's going to get the offensive rookie of the year. I don't think it's even a question at this point. But 3 people picked him, but those same 3 people all picked the same defensive player, which is Dallas Turner. And I do not think Dallas Turner's going
No.
I don't think so. He came out late in the season, but I don't think it's going to be. Who do you think is going to be the defensive rookie of the year? You guys got any ideas?
Probably the guy we're going to see tonight, Verse.
Yeah, Jared Verse.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
And we had people pick Verse on the defensive side. 3 or 4 people picked Verse, but they didn't have Daniels. They had like Caleb Williams or whatever. That's the beauty of the game. But nobody won it. That $200 goes back in the pool. So I wanted to get that out of the way tonight. If Daniels didn't win it, they got to rehash the whole thing, and I'll announce it at a later time.
Anthony Tolson. I had to pick that blankety blank Ohio State wide receiver Martin Harrison Jr. And what was I thinking by not taking my boy Jared Verse? Well, Anthony, that's a problem you don't usually think. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the show, Ant.
To ask the question is to answer the question.
All right.
Great.
Real quick recap before we get to our live big board.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, first everybody, we got over 100 folks already in our chat room watching, and usually, folks, real quick before we get going, we usually give away a prize in our live shows. We are not for our pregame show, but we are having a quick postgame show. If you join us for our postgame show, we will give away a prize in our postgame show. We are not giving away a prize in our pregame show. Ruby is just done. She's doing too much already with the big board and everything else. So apologies for that, but we will give away a prize in our postgame show.
2 shows?
Yeah, we're doing 2 shows. Yes, we are.
Oh, Chris, you gonna pace yourself for 2 shows? You all right?
Yeah, I think I'll be all right.
Okay. You look a little yellow right now.
Northfield said, "Go Irish." Whoever said "Go Irish," ban them. They're gone. They are ineligible for any prize in the post-game show if they join us. Anyways,
Ted's in the national championship.
We're not talking about college football. This is a Viking show, but yeah, they are, and they're going to win. I think. Hopefully, I don't mean to jinx them, but anyways, wild card weekend. We had 4 games go. We had, I believe, the first game was Houston and the LA Chargers. I kind of thought the Chargers were going to win that game, but they got the brakes beat off them. Chris,
yeah, they got rolled.
Yeah, did you guys think the Chargers were going to win, or did you see Houston winning that game, Chris?
No, when I made our picks, because we picked all the games each week over at DN, I think we all had the there's 6 of us. I think we all had the Chargers winning because everybody nobody really thought much of Houston because they kind of went into the postseason on a bit of a low note, and the Chargers didn't even bother showing up on Saturday afternoon. So that was a little bit of a surprise.
Drew, sir, what did you think?
I had Houston slated back in March on my wall right here. I got all of our picks. I had Houston going to the Super Bowl as my AFC, so I got to stick with them.
Okay.
It didn't look good leading up to it about the last month, but they not only beat Herbert and Harbaugh pretty good,
they did.
They're going to beat Kansas City.
Do you think so, really?
Because of their defensive ends. Hunter and that Will Anderson, they're going to win because of that. They're not. That's what's going to give Mahomes problems. Houston's going to win it, and it'll be a big upset, but it won't be for me. Yeah, I'm.
Ooh. Dinnerbox Pro Wrestling says Houston ain't making the Super Bowl guaranteed, Drew. Okay. But hey, look, if you went with them at the beginning of the year, you got to stick with them. You're absolutely right.
That's what a fan does. You got to stick with your original picks, or lie about it and get away with it.
Yeah. Doug Alcare, Tollison, please pick the Rams. Let's see. The other game on Saturday, I can't remember. I'm not going to do these.
Pittsburgh? Was it Pittsburgh?
It was. Yeah, the Ravens and the Steelers. I had the Steelers in our fan page, our private fan page on Facebook, the Gallahorn. Drew, you asked everybody to pick an upset. The Ravens had not played the Steelers particularly well the last several times. I kind of thought that was a sneaky upset pick. I was wildly wrong on that. The Ravens, Derrick Henry looked just monstrous. You see that? It really wasn't a stiff arm. It was more of a bitch slap that Derrick Henry laid on the Steelers defensive back. I think it was Minka Fitzpatrick. And they rolled 28-14. Did you think the Steelers even had a chance going into that game, Drew?
No.
Okay.
No, I did not. I picked the Commanders in that upset pool that you were talking about. That ended up being a good pick for me.
Okay.
Pittsburgh, I don't know what deal is. Pittsburgh's got that team. We're got good enough to get to the playoffs, and then we're gonna get blown out. And I don't know. I hope KOC's not going down that same road. But I don't. Pittsburgh looked lifeless to me. They didn't look like they wanted to be there. It looked like they'd rather have gone home. They looked like getting to the playoffs was their ultimate goal. So I just you got to look at the free agent signing at running back. Aaron Jones, Barkley, and then Derrick Henry just signed. I mean, that position rocked the free agency this year.
And look how much of a difference all 3 of those backs have made for those 3 teams.
They are really good when Henry gets rolling. Really.
Chris, did you see Pittsburgh having any chance against Baltimore like I did?
No, I didn't think they really had much of a shot. I mean, they had lost, I think it was 4 in a row going into the playoffs. Yeah, they had no momentum, and their quarterback situation's a mess. George Pickens, I don't know what the hell that guy's doing half the time. He's allegedly great, but he never really shows anything worthwhile. So, I didn't think Pittsburgh had much of a chance in that one. I thought Baltimore was going to hammer him pretty good.
Well, I guess that makes me the lone village idiot on that game. No problem. I'm used to it. The 3, and then those were the only 2 games on Saturday. The 3 games yesterday. Buffalo and Denver. Denver looked good on their very first drive, and then they remembered they were Denver. And the uniforms they wore, they deserved to lose just based on those uniforms they wore alone. They lost 31-7.
USFL. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, Drew. I didn't think Denver had a shot in that game, but they played a very good first half.
Denver,
I thought.
I think Denver's on the plane ride home. They're pretty happy with where their season ended up being. They got Nix. They got Nix is the real deal. People say he sucked in that game, which he probably did, but he had a good season. They turned it around to where they want to be, but they just don't have the horses to keep up with Buffalo. They're not there yet. They are not there yet. So they played pretty good for a while. Buffalo's really good too. You can kind of slate in Buffalo and the Ravens for the AFC title game.
Well, you just said Houston. You said Houston was going to the Super Bowl, Drew.
Well, that's my backup plan. No, Houston. I did say that, so I got to stick with it. Houston, they're going to beat Kansas City. I don't know how they're going to beat Buffalo. That Josh Allen guy's pretty good, but
okay. Chris, is Buffalo or do you have Buffalo going to the Super Bowl for the AFC?
I think I actually have Baltimore.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I had Houston.
Right. Yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember who I said in the preseason off the top of my head. So
you named like 5 teams just to cover yourself.
I doubt that, but
you're smart.
I had Buffalo winning that game pretty easily, and they did. And then you had the Philadelphia Eagles beat that team from Wisconsin. I think about every third play Green Bay lost a starter due to injury. And Jordan Love, I don't care what anybody says. I think he's the most overpaid quarterback in the NFL. He's not as good as everybody in the national media makes him out to be. He just isn't. I'm sorry. I don't care. I don't care what anybody in Green Bay says. I don't care what any Packers fans say. I think that contract is going to become an albatross for the Packers in the next couple of years. And they've got him signed through 2028 or 2029, Chris?
Something like that. He signed a 4-year extension, so it's got to be at least 2028 before they can from under that one, I think.
And that said, Drew, Philadelphia looked kind of beatable.
I told Toonces when we were watching that game, I'd rather go there than go back to Detroit.
Would you?
You know what? The Jalen Hurts guy, what is so special about him? I shouldn't say it now because we're gonna play him next week. He's probably going to shred. But during that game, I mean, the Packers defense was playing pretty good. He wasn't the big difference maker or anything. I mean, I think I kind of like our chances when we go up against Philly next week. So, but I'm always glad when the Packers lose. Who's your favorite team, Drew? The Vikings. Who's your second favorite team? Who's ever playing those bastard Packers? That's my second favorite team.
And then the nightcapper last night was the Washington Commanders going into Tampa Bay, upsetting Tampa Bay. I don't know about you guys, but I think Jaden Daniels is going to be a problem for the NFL, for the other 31 teams in the NFL for a long time. That kid was he played with a composure that you just don't see rookies play with in that kind of setting, Drew. You just don't.
No, I was really impressed by his poise. He never got down on himself. He just seems to be pretty level-headed. And he's taken a group of guys, which, let's face it, they don't have a big-time running game. And they got McLaurin from
the Ohio State University.
They got him out there, but they had that other dude I never heard of. When you take a bunch of dudes you don't really know and you're shredding with them, that's a good quarterback who's making people better around him. He was, when he got that ball back in the last drive, I kind of was feeling it already. He's going to lead him down the field and score. But I wanted that to be a reminder of what's going on tonight for the Vikings, how the playoffs, Chris, they magnify all the problems. Everything's under a microscope. Baker Mayfield's fumble in their own end. And then when they went down to the 12-yard line and couldn't get the first down and had to kick the tying field goal. That was a huge mistake when the guy snapped it wrong or whatever, Graham Norton. Just goes to show you two problems cost him that game. So that should be the example for tonight. You got to be on it. You can't let that crucial handful of plays get away from you. But hats off to Washington, man. Wow.
Yeah. And the job Dan Quinn has done in 1 year there, Chris. I mean, it's pretty impressive. You got to admit.
Yeah, the kind of, I don't know what the right word to use, but the remnants of the Daniel Snyder era appear to be officially gone in Washington. They need to get that cloud out from away from them, and they did it. It appears they've done it because, yeah, that was their first playoff win. I think somebody said 19 years was
Wow.
the last time they won a
Was it
playoff
really?
game. So
Wow.
yeah, it was their first playoff win since like 2005. I think they said Mark Brunell was the quarterback the last time they won a
Shut
playoff
the
game.
front door.
Not to take
Yeah.
anything away from Washington, but you guys kind of feel Tampa let that one squander away, squirm away a little bit, or
I mean, they had their chances, but
Yeah.
yeah, like you said,
I
they
believe so,
made
yeah.
too many mistakes at bad times, and
and they
yeah,
they doinked it and it went in, Ted. I mean,
Yeah. 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 And somebody said on Twitter last night, well, if Snyder had still owned Washington, that doink would have been no good. And I replied, if Snyder had still owned the Redskins or the Commanders, they wouldn't even been in the playoffs because they wouldn't have.
no.
no. And all the secretaries would be calling in sick. None of them wanted to show up for work, allegedly.
So next week in the AFC, you've got the Houston Texans traveling to Kansas City.
Houston, all the way.
The Bills play the Ravens. In the NFC, the Commanders travel to Detroit, and as poised now the pressure ratchets up every week in the NFC. Well, in the NFL, as you go from wild card division to conference championship to Super Bowl, obviously. But look, I think the Washington Commanders are a team that can upset the Detroit Lions next week. I really firmly believe that.
Absolutely.
You don't see them being in the same situation as Denver and Buffalo, though? You don't kind of feel like it's going to get away from them? They don't have the horses to win it?
I think Jaden Daniels is that much better than Bo Nix because he can beat you with his feet in a way that Bo Nix can't. I don't think Denver has the receivers that Washington does. I think Terry McLaurin is better than anything Denver has because he's truly an elite wide receiver now, and I think you saw that this year. He finally has a really good quarterback that trusts him. He never had that before this year.
Man, he's a fantastic receiver.
He really is. And I think they have a better, not like leaps and bounds better, but they have a better running game than Denver has.
If they beat Detroit, we beat Philly. Is the title game in our house, Chris?
It is. Yes.
Yep.
It would be.
If we win and Washington wins, otherwise it's somewhere else.
Gives me a semi just thinking about it.
And speaking of which, next week the winner of tonight's game between LA and Minnesota will travel to the city of brotherly love, and that is where this show really begins with our big board.
Oh,
look at that!
What is that?
That is our big board. She's got cats galore. Is that cats or dogs? What is that?
Those are Toonce's pictures.
Oh, okay. All right.
Folks,
if you watch our weekly preview show, we do a big board every week. It's our tribute to the old CBS NFL Today pregame show that Drew and I loved watching growing up.
Yep.
With Brent Musburger, Jimmy the Greek Snyder.
Yep.
Phyllis George, Herb Cross, and then later Jane Kennedy. The categories are a little bit different, but the premise is still the same. We start with quarterback. And Chris, what do we finish with?
Intangibles.
Because Drew, what are intangibles?
They're things you can't see, son.
They're things you can't see, son. Just shut up and watch the show. Okay, Dad.
We're thinking of you, Don. We're thinking of you, Don, every week.
All righty. We're going to start, as always, with quarterback. And Drew, we're going to start with you. Matthew Stafford or Sam Darnold? Who you got?
And please, if you want to chime in in the chat, if you want to chime in your comments on each position, by all means, throw them in there. If we can't get to the questions, we'll do it post game. But we want you as part of this. Quarterback, wow. You'd think I would have to go Matt Stafford because of all of his experience in the playoff and his experience overall and the game he had against the Vikings last time. It all would point to taking Matthew Stafford, and I am throwing that to the wayside, and I am going to pick Sam Darnold for this game because I think Sam Darnold had enough of last week, and I think Stafford is going to run into some problems tonight. I think Vikings are going to confuse him a little bit more. He's very good against the blitz, but I think the Vikings got a plan to disguise some of that blitzing. And I like the Vikings not only to have a couple interceptions from Stafford, but I expect them to get some sacks on him, which they didn't. I don't think they had in the first game, very many of them. Everything points I should take Stafford, but I am really thinking Sam Darnold's going to be the quarterback of this game. I am, and you people can call me out and say I'm crazy, but something in my gut says Sammy's going to bounce back from that debacle he had last week. Sam Darnold gets my pick.
You know, Drew, I'm picking Sam Darnold as well, and like you, common sense says I should pick Matthew Stafford. He's got more experience in big games. Sam Darnold's truly only really big game was last week, and it looked like the stage was too big for him. I think it was a one-off, and I think they got back to Minnesota, and Kevin O'Connell sat him down and said, "You're going to be fine." Last week was a one-off. This is what we're going to do to settle you down. We're going to go back to L.A., or, well, in this case, Arizona, and you're going to play L.A., and we've got a game plan set up for you to get you comfortable early, to get you settled down, and you are going to have the game of your life, Sam Darnold. Is it right? Is it rational? No, but I'm also picking Sam Darnold. Chris?
Yeah, I can see where everyone's coming from, but I just don't think that Stafford's experience can be completely overlooked here. I mean, he's led a team to a Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl. Obviously, the Rams' offense was not as good as Minnesota's offense during the regular season. So, if we're going just on what we saw the regular season, you would have to go with Sam Darnold. But, I hate doing this, but Stafford's level of experience moves this to a push for me. I can't really favor one or the other here, to be honest.
Fair enough. All right. Running game
popped up there. That's awesome.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that live and all. This is cool.
Everybody, people in the chat playing along with the quarterback, they like Sam, or do they like? What do you think?
It's kind of back and forth. Todd Taylor said Stafford has a sick family, which could play into it. Yeah, maybe he's
what?
I didn't sick, flu, cold, whatever going around the household there.
Oh.
Okay. Running game. I'll start off. Look, I think with the running game, the Vikings running game, I think, has struggled the last 6-7 weeks for the most part. When you add in the fact that Cam Akers is questionable, Kieran Williams has been running very well. I'm going to go with the Rams. That's just me. Chris?
Yeah, I kind of agree. Kyron Williams gave the Vikings issues the last time these two teams played. I'm pretty sure he went over 100 yards. Aaron Jones has been nicked up here and there, and yeah, Cam Akers had a bit of an illness this last week, so he could be a little slower than what we're used to seeing. And yeah, the Vikings run game hasn't been great over the last few weeks, so yeah, I think we got to go with the Rams on this one as well.
I'm gonna buck the system on this. I know the Vikings defense has not been playing well against the run. The first 5 of their last 6 teams have rushed for over 100 yards. Cardinals and Falcons and Lions are 3 of those, rushing for 150 yards as a team. They haven't been the first 11 games. The Vikings only allowed 100+ rushing 3 times by another team. So it's kind of gone downhill since then. But I'm going to buck the system, and I'm going to pull out something right here that we need to look at. Aaron Jones needs to be a difference in this game. Now, He's not a scrub. He plays well every game, but let me read off real quick, since we have time. Let me read off Aaron Jones's last 5 games last year, which are 3 regular season in both his playoff games. This is just rushing. 127, 120, 111 to end the season. Those are his last 3 regular season games. Go to Dallas, 118 and 3 touchdowns. Week later, the big upset they had there in Dallas when he was, Packers upset Dallas. Next week, Aaron Jones goes to San Francisco, 108. That's 127, 120, 111, 118, and 108. That's the guy we need. His last 2 weeks rushing has been like 45 yards, 47 yards. This is what he's here for. This game, starting now, this is what they brought him in for. I mean, an upgrade at running back is one thing, but him dragging off 120, being a real difference maker. This is the game. This is why he's here. So I'm expecting him. He hasn't really had a big ball busting game, guys, has he? He had some good games at the beginning of the season, but we need to be talking about him 3 hours from now on our post-game show going, man, Aaron Jones showed it tonight, didn't he?
Yes.
That's why I'm giving the Vikings a check mark, because I think this is Aaron Jones. All these numbers I just read, he's due, man. That guy is due to be a difference maker. And tonight's the night he gets it done. So my check mark for the running game goes to the Minnesota Vikings. Call me a homer. Throw me a homer.
No, I get it. I mean, no, I get it. And there's something Doc Proto just mentioned I want to bring up later. And Dan Lee just said Jones will get hurt every game he's on the sidelines hurt. It's a possibility, but
playoffs, baby. It's playoffs.
Yeah. Playoffs. All right. So that our first two categories, quarterback and running game, are out of the way. Receiving game. Chris, lead us off with, Jared P says Jones gets 150 and 2 scores.
That'd be nice. But
if he does that,
prize.
The Vikings, well, we said we're not doing prizes in the pregame, man.
No, but if he does do it.
Okay, all right. I see what you're saying. Jared P, if Aaron Jones, if he gets close, if he gets within 10 yards if he gets 140 and 2 touchdowns or more, and the Vikings win, you get a prize, sir. All right.
Yes,
Chris, talk to us about the receiving game.
Yeah, the big story the first time these two teams played was the fact that Puka Nacua came back and had a big game. Brian Flores said this week that they literally didn't know until the inactive list came out that Nacua was going to play. So they had to scramble a little bit, and they were a little unprepared. They're not going to have that advantage this time. How much good it'll do remains to be seen. And the one thing, and the dude that I think is going to have a huge game tonight, particularly after what he did or didn't do in Detroit last week, is going to be TJ Hawkinson. He didn't play the first game between these two teams, and I'm sure that between him and Jefferson and Addison, they heard all the crap all week about how terrible the offense looked and whatnot in Detroit, and they're going to want to do something about it. So, yeah, I gotta give the Vikings the receiving game check here.
Drew,
Vikings all the way for the receivers. I think last time, I mean, we mentioned that the Kyron Williams did well last time. How McVay likes to do it, Ted and Chris. He likes to open up on first down with an 8-yard square out or flare pass, and they were doing that in the first game. So Kyron Williams started off his rushing night in 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3, and that's a lot easier to run than 2nd and 10 or 12. So I think they're going to have the same attack tonight. The short passing game, they're going to try to use the pass to set up the run. I think McVay likes to do that. That's how Kyron Williams runs best. I think the Vikings receiving game is going to be a lot different than what you saw last week. I'm expecting that short passing game, and I know Kevin O'Connell's heard about it. He's heard about it from the fans, from probably his boss or whatever. Where is the short passing game? Where is the play action? Where's the slant? Where's the, 3-step drop? Get Sam Moore in a groove this week. Where is that stuff? Because that destroyed him last week, not having a short passing game. I'm expecting to see that. But something I wanted to bring up, and I found out in my research, where's that in the paperwork here? That the Rams, sorry, the bomb's going off. Hold on, gotta pull the, hold on.
Ted, why don't you go ahead?
All right. No. The Rams have given up, I think, they're the 5th worst team at giving up big plays, the 20-plus yard plays, and that's what JJ does. The Vikings thrive on that extend the field. The Rams give up big plays, Chris. They do, and I think the Vikings are going to get some tonight. I think they're going to they're going to figure out how to chip block, make a max protection, and get this ball down the field a little bit to stretch the field. But the Rams, week after week after week, given up big plays to a lot of different receivers. And so I am going to give the Vikings on that. I'm going to give them my check mark for receivers. Plus, Flores pretty much admitted we weren't prepared for Nacua last time we played. We didn't think he was going to play. So we had a whole different game plan. And he said it not as an excuse, but he said it as a way, don't expect that shit to happen again. we're going to be better. He's going to get his catches, but he's not going to control us like he did last time. So Vikings receivers for me.
I gave this a category of push. I think when you put Addison and Jefferson up against Kupp and Puka Nacua, they pretty much split even. I think Tyler Higbee and TJ Hawkinson, based on Hawkinson coming back, they're about. I mean, Hawkinson fully healthy, I think, is better. But the way the Rams use Higbee, he's been very effective this year. But he's also coming back from an injury as well. So I think that talent pretty much evens itself out. That's why I gave it a push. I think it's going to be more of who schemes their receivers open better, and which quarterback has more time to throw. If the Vikings continue to use that 5 and 7 step drop like they did against Detroit last week, and hope that Sam has protection to wait for somebody to get open, the Rams are going to have a distinctive advantage tonight. Barbecue Smokehouse King, the Vikings receiver corps is better, not even close. I profoundly disagree, Reggie. I profoundly disagree. Good to see you in here, Reg, but no, I think it's very close. I really do. And Sean McVay is really good at scheming his guys open, probably as good as anybody in the NFL. So that's why I'm giving this a push. So we'll see how it goes. Offensive line, Drewster.
I went back and forth, looked at all the players. As much as I hate to do it, I had to give the offensive line to the Rams. The Vikings interior offensive line just scares me week after week. I actually sent a message to Ed White today. He lives in San Diego and Julian, and said, I've checked there are flights to Arizona. Can you get there? Because we really need you tonight, Ed. We could plug you right in there at guard. I wasn't even kidding either. Can you get to Arizona and play for us tonight? I'm really worried about the interior of the Vikings offensive line. It seems to get worse by the week. And the Rams defensive line may not be this year. Next year or the year after, they will clear cut be the best defensive line in football. I'm serious. You look at the research on those guys, the pressures they get with the edge guys coming off, they got a great defensive line. Linebackers a little sketchy, but the Vikings are going to have their hands full tonight. If they're going to do, like you said, the 7-step drops, they're going to have to max protect somehow. If they don't have a short passing game tonight, they're going to lose, the Vikings. They need something because the Rams are going to be pressuring Stafford. That's how you beat them. That's what Aaron Glenn said this post game. You pressure Stafford, that's how you beat the Vikings. So they're going to be trying to duplicate that tonight and get to them. So the Vikings are going to have an answer for that. But I think the Rams offensive line is a tad bit better than the Vikings.
Okay. I picked the Rams as well. Cam Robinson has I think regressed a bit since he first came over in that trade after Christian Darrisaw got hurt, as has Blake Brandel. Garrett Bradbury's not done very well. Dalton Reiser's been okay. Brian O'Neill has been solid, but the left side of that offensive line has just kind of regressed as the season has gone on, and the interior O-line, especially when trying to run the ball, has just gotten worse and worse. Last week, they were terrible. In the first matchup, Sam Darnold got sacked 3 times. He got pressured, I think, another 3 times by Jared Verse all by himself. If they cannot protect Sam Darnold this evening, and the Vikings defense cannot get to Matthew Stafford, it's going to be another track meet. And I don't know that Darnold can match Stafford throw for throw if he has that kind of pressure again. So I'm going with the Rams offensive line. Chris.
Yeah, I agree. I got to go with the Rams here. The Vikings offensive line looked so bad last week, specifically Robinson and Brandel. We can't have that kind of performance again, and I'm sure that the Rams noticed that and will try to kind of emulate a little bit what Detroit did. But yeah, the interior is scary. Cam Robinson needs to step up a bit in this one, particularly against Verse. And the Rams have just had the better offensive line so far, so they get the check mark here.
And what is Dan Lee mentioned this, and I've noticed this every single week. I think I made a joke about this last week. He says Brandel needs to look back at Darnold every single snap. Why does he do that?
To tee off the defensive line to let him know when the snap's coming. Come on, Ted.
God. bugs me. It just
like,
bugs me.
It's like Dallas saying, "All right, here we go." People know the snap's coming. Idiot.
All righty. Okay, front seven. I'm picking the Vikings. Jared Verse is a great player for the Rams. Like you guys said, or like we all agreed earlier, he's probably going to win the NFC or the Pepsi Rookie of the Year, whatever the word is called now. They have I think Brady Visky's a pretty good player, but all in all, I like the Vikings front seven. The Vikings front seven last week held the Lions offense in check for about 3/4 until they had to stay on the field because the offense couldn't get anything going. And then Jahmyr Gibbs they kept running the ball. They wore down and they just kind of collapsed in the fourth quarter. I still like this front seven. That said, Brian Flores has got to do something different to pressure Matthew Stafford in this matchup in October. He had all day to sit back. He faced about as much pressure, Matthew Stafford did, in that first matchup that Neil deGrasse Tyson did, having to do a third grade math test. He's got to dial up the pressure and get him uncomfortable in the pocket. And if he can, then a lot of times Matthew Stafford gets a little bit rattled and he'll throw kind of an erratic football. And the Vikings defense or the Vikings secondary led the NFL in interceptions, I believe.
Right.
And that will give them opportunities to get a turnover, hopefully in plus territory. And if they can get that extra possession and they can get a short field, they might be able to build a quick lead. And that could be a very positive evening for the Vikings. So I'm going to pick the Vikings front seven here. Chris.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like you said, the Vikings basically kept Detroit in check for about 3/4 until they just ran out of gas because the offense couldn't do anything. I mean that was a one-score game going into the fourth quarter, and then things kind of got away from the Vikings there. But yeah, guys like Grenard, Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman, who didn't play in the first game, is going to be a huge difference maker tonight. Dallas Turner is starting to come around a little bit, and those unheralded guys up front, your Jerry Tillerys, your Jalen Redmonds, those guys. Like you've said already, the Rams have that good young talent up front, but I think the Vikings get the advantage there just because I think Flores has been saving a few things for the postseason here, and yeah, he knows he's got to get Stafford rattled tonight, and I think we're going to see that happen.
Drewster.
I am giving it to the Vikings, but I think this is where the game. They talk about the rubber hitting the road. This is the difference of this game, and this is the biggest challenge Flores had. The Vikings, we all know their blitz rate, 39%, leads the league. They like the blitz. Stafford is one of the quarterbacks who tears up the blitz. He's very good against it. I think he has the 5th best numbers against the blitz. He burned us a couple. We got to him a couple times. We threw him off a couple times in the first meeting, but the majority of the time he was ready for it. They blocked it up well, and that's the tough spot that B-Flow is going to have to go tonight. When does he blitz? How does he time it? Down distance, all that stuff. That's going to be a major challenge for the Vikings. And then you look at the other side, Jared Verse, Byron Young, Kobe Turner, Brandon Fisk. I mean, Verse has 76 pressures this season. That's the most by a rookie since Nick Bosa in 2019.
Wow.
The guy is just, last year, Young and Turner combined for 11 pressures, a high for a pair of rookies. This whole line is growing up together. They are very, very fast. They are very quick. They're very athletic. And the Vikings offensive line, we just talked about their problems. I am genuinely concerned, especially if we can't make some hay in the running game, that we are going to be putting Darnold back in that deer in the headlights, full tilt boogie, Ted. I am worried about the Rams front seven. Not the linebacker so much. We can burn them in coverage, Hawkinson, but you're going to have to get a short game to offset their pressure. They pressure the piss out of the quarterback. Vikings are going to have to be ready, but I'm picking the Vikings front seven because I think their front seven is actually going to be the difference tonight. I think they're going to be every step as good as the Rams are. I think they are. All right. I'm giving them the nod. I like their linebackers better, Ted. I like Cashman better than any linebacker the Rams got. So we're just going to have to control those edge guys with Verse. I mean, the Vikings can do that. They'll be looking pretty good.
All right, secondary. Chris, talk to us about the secondary.
Yeah, we talk about experience. I mean, you look at guys in the Vikings secondary. Stephon Gilmore has been on a Super Bowl champion before. They've got some experienced guys the other places. Byron Murphy has been outstanding this season. Uh, the Rams have, like the rest of their defense, they have some good, solid young defensive backs. But yeah, I think the Vikings are going to get the nod in this one just because when it comes to this one, they have the experience, and when you get to the postseason, that could pay some significant dividends, especially if, as Drew was saying earlier, the front seven can get some pressure on Stafford and get him to force him into some bad throws.
Drew.
What?
Secondary.
Vikings. I think the Vikings secondary, Flores I think Flores and the whole team is kind of masked some of the flaws that they have back there. Gilmore's kind of slow, but he's still a pretty good cover guy, but he's one of those guys, he's not in his prime anymore, but he's smart. He plays smart and he knows what he's doing. I think even though they swallow their whistles in the playoffs, I think the Vikings are going to get some really decent PI calls tonight. And I think the Rams are going to be a little grabby back there. But I like the Vikings secondary in this game compared to the Rams. Like I said, the Rams secondary has a tendency to cheat up and give up a lot of big plays. Go back and look at each of their games, giving up 40, 50-yard passes all over the place. And tonight, this is the best receiving core in the league, if you ask me.
Yeah.
When they're playing well, when Sam has time, when the Vikings are in a groove, when the Vikings are being creative, when Sam Darnold has confidence, the Vikings passing game cannot be stopped. And I think tonight they're going to redo the red zone when they get down there. It comes down to the red zone. A lot of it does tonight. But it's all about tonight. It's about this first playoff game, bouncing back. And I like the Vikings receivers. I pick Vikings secondary. I think the Vikings secondary gets 3 picks tonight, 2 or 3.
Okay. I'm going to the Vikings as well. I'm with this caveat: if the front seven can pressure Matthew Stafford, and the Vikings offensive line can keep Darnold clean, and last week was a one-off, I like the Vikings secondary. If Darnold's game last week repeats itself, and Stafford's clean in the pocket, then the Rams are going to have a field day. They just are. It comes down to that. But for right now, I'm picking the Vikings.
What are the Vikings have? 24 interceptions or something? I mean, that's crazy.
I believe so. Yeah.
They're ball hawk. 33 takeaways on the year combined.
Yeah. One thing somebody mentioned earlier about Bynum. I saw a thing in the paper earlier this week or online about Bynum going to some yoga studio or dance studio practicing for his next, turnover celebration.
Learn to tackle.
I normally find those stories kind of fun and whimsical, but man, that's for like week 7. You're in the playoffs and you got your ass kicked by Detroit last week. Maybe this is old man yelling at cloud or get off my lawn or whatever, but worry about winning a freaking playoff game before you worry about what your next turnover celebration is going to be, because you there's no tomorrow if you don't win tonight.
That's the kind of shit the Giants do on a boat with their shirts off.
There you go. Come on. All right. Special teams. I'm not saying the Minnesota Vikings have a kicking crisis with Will Reichard. What?
No, I'm just saying. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. What?
Sorry.
I'm not saying the Minnesota Vikings have a kicking crisis with Will Reichard, but he is not the stone cold assassin he was at the beginning of the year. You look over at Josh Carty, he's been very good. Will Reichard was really good, but he's just been very erratic lately. I still think he might be dealing with that lingering leg injury that put him on injured reserve about halfway through the season. So with that in mind, and with me still insisting that punt return yardage don't matter, because whenever the Vikings do return a punt, they get penalized for it anyways, I'm going to pick the Rams here. Chris.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Rams here on special teams too, just because at this point, Reichert worries me just enough where, like you said, he was awesome in the early part of the season, but now he's had some struggles and issues lately. And if there's anything we know about Vikings kickers in the postseason, this is going to bring all of that back, and we're going to hear if Riker misses a field goal or puts something, you're going to have 5 straight minutes of talk about Vikings postseason kicking history, and I want to freaking hear it. But we're going to end up hearing it if he misses one. But yeah, the Rams special teams have been pretty good, so we will give them the check mark here.
They get my check mark also. The Rams special teams. I don't know what's going to be worse. Who gets the check mark or Ted crossing over the red zone?
Yeah, and we're going to have to go back to the red zone because I screwed that up, didn't I? And we're live.
This is why the cat scratches your face, Ted. This is why. This is why the cat comes after you.
All right, Drew, tell me about the red zone. We all have the Rams for the red zone. Drew, why do you have the Rams for the red zone?
Because look at the Vikings in the red zone. Their ass last week.
Yeah.
Kick their ass, piss all over their faces. That was the worst red zone offense I've ever seen in my life. Literally the worst I've ever seen. They were 0-4. They 0-2 on fourth down. Figure it out that they got to win back my vote. I can't vote for them in the red zone now. Come on, Rams.
Yeah, that's the exact same reason I picked the Rams. The Vikings could not have found the end zone with an M1 Abrams tank last week. I swear to God, they could not have. They could not have.
What the hell was going on?
It was embarrassing. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible.
In week 18, Ted. It was week. Come on.
I don't know.
If it's week 1, kind of say you can blame it on week 1.
Yeah. That's why I picked the Rams. Chris, why did you pick the Rams for the red zone?
Yeah, basically it's the point with the Vikings red zone offense after what we saw last week. You can't pick them until they show you that they can give you a reason to pick them. Right. Yeah, it was a historically terrible red zone performance last week, and you wouldn't expect to see that happen again. But yeah, when you put on a performance that bad, you kind of forfeit your right to have people pick you until you show that you've pulled your head out of your rear end and gotten it together inside the 20. So yeah, Rams.
Dinner Box Pro Wrestling says our red zone offense single-handedly lost us that Detroit game. That, I think if the Vikings convert a couple of those, it's hard to argue that point. That's a very good. That's a very good.
It
comment.
Absolutely did.
All right, so apologies for skipping over the red zone. We talked about special teams. We'll head down to the coaching category now. Chris, talk to us about coaching.
It's really hard to go against Kevin O'Connell with the way he's coached this team this season. I mean, 14-3 is nothing to sneeze at, obviously, but it's kind of similar to what we said about, or at least what I said about the quarterback situation with Stafford and Darnold. Sean McVay's been through this before. I mean, Sean McVay has taken a team to and won a Super Bowl. Kevin O'Connell's still looking for his first playoff win after the egg they laid against the Giants a couple of years ago. But I'm leaning toward the Rams here. It's not as pronounced as it probably could be, but yeah, I just think McVay's experience and the fact that he's been here before kind of gives him the right to have that check mark here.
Drew.
McVay, beat him. You got to beat him first. You got to beat your old boss. He got outcoached the first time they played back in October. No, you can't even question that. The Vikings got 2 touchdowns their first 2 drives. McVay threw some adjustments out there, and he outcoached KOC the last 3 quarters. You gotta start beating these coaches that are up on the top of the line. This is the guy you got to beat. You got to take the monkey off your back. He's not your boss anymore. Kick him in the nuts. You don't have to be buddies with him tonight. He's the opponent. I think I got to give McVay the check mark, like the red zone, until they get it done. I can't give him the helmet, Ted. I can't give him the check mark on this. McVay gets it until KOC outcoaches him.
Yep.
McVay gets the check mark.
The Rams started off 0-2, and we always talk about at the beginning of the year, if you start 0-2, you have something like less than a 10% chance to make the playoffs. After 0-2, they started 1-4, to include losing to the hapless Chicago Bears.
Oh.
Hapless Chicago Bears. After that, they reeled off, I don't know, to end the season, something like, 7 or 8 games in a row. They won a lot. They ended up 10-7, won the division. that the Seattle Seahawks had been leading for most of the season, got them a division championship and a home playoff game. It's not that I don't like Kevin O'Connell. It's not that I don't like Wes Phillips and Brian Flores. I love this coaching staff. I think Kevin O'Connell is the guy to bring this franchise our long sought after Super Bowl championship. But like you guys have said, Sean McVay has been there, done that. I mean, he took a very young and inexperienced Jared Goff to a Super Bowl, almost beat Bill Belichick. But I can't in good conscience go with KOC for the very same reasons you said. He hasn't won a game yet in the postseason. He's only won in the playoffs. Until he does, he's had a very good year this year. He went 13-4 2 years ago. He won games with Josh Dobbs as his quarterback. He's a great coach. But until you do it in the big stage under the bright lights, I'm going with the guy that has, and that's Sean McVay and his staff. So I'm going with the Rams. All right, intangibles. Drewster, what do you got for intangibles?
I have, will the extra week of rest help the Rams, give them an advantage? Some think so. Some people think that they sit their starters, they get the extra rest. I'm kind of leaning, I would agree with you if this was a regular season game and having to fly west for the Vikings, if it was a regular season game. But I think the adrenaline takes over in these postseason games, win or go home. I don't know if that's an intangible that the Rams can hold over us. I think the Vikings will answer that by coming out in the first quarter. The Rams are the worst first quarter team in football, 1.8 points. No, 31st, 1.8 points in the first quarter. Vikings would come out. They remember what happened last week. They got punched in the face. I think they're going to do the punching, but the will the extra rest help the Rams? And then, of course, the neutral venue, Ted, that's got to be an intangible. How are the reactions going to be? What's the crowd going to be divvied up for the fans from one team to the next? You know, it can't be easy for the Rams leaving there's got to be some emotional feelings going on flying to Arizona and playing a football game. That's certainly got to be an intangible. So I'm giving the Vikings my intangibles this week.
I am too. So right after 9/11, I deployed to go fight. And we couldn't talk to our families for a while, and we heard while we were gone, that our families were getting, and this happened to some of our families, they were getting death threat letters in the mail. Whoever found out who we were, and we were in special operations unit, and people were sending death threats to our families. And I'm not trying to equate that to what's going on, but it's a distraction. What the Rams players are feeling with their families is a huge distraction. And some guys can compartmentalize that and some guys can't. And this is a big, huge distraction for the Rams. It's now essentially a road game for both teams. And for the Vikings, it's just another road game. You just get up and you fly to Arizona and you go play a football game. For the Rams, and if Ruby, if you could put that one comment up from earlier, from Doc Proto, I'm sure many of the players and staff are at least under an evacuation warning. I have to wonder how focused the Rams can be.
That's a great point. That's a great
the Lakers. I think it was the Lakers coach mentioned I think he lost his house. He lived in Pacific Palisades and he lost his house. And I'm sure a lot of the Rams players and their families have had to evacuate. They're displaced. And I hope that hasn't happened. I truly, honestly don't. But it's something that takes you away from focusing on playing football. And I don't care who you are, and you can't and shut up about, well, they're millionaires. They get paid millions to play a football game. They're freaking human beings, man. And I don't care how much you get paid for what you do. You care about your family first. If you have any semblances of being a man and taking care of your family. And if you are, then this prioritizes everything else that you do in your life. And you want to take care of your family and you want to make sure they're safe. So until that happens, then I don't care about anything else in my life until I know they're safe. And so maybe that's taken 2 or 3 days for them to get settled. And it's taken them that distraction away from them to be able to concentrate on football. And the Rams very, very well could possibly not be focused on this game. I remember after the Minneapolis Miracle, it took the Vikings 3 or 4 days to figure out, oh, hey, we got to play another game on Sunday against Philadelphia. And they ended up getting their rear ends kicked. It was a different kind of distraction, but it was still a distraction. And it can be very hard for the Rams to be focused on this game. Plus, it's also another road game for them. So that's why I give the Vikings the intangibles. Chris.
Yeah, I mean, the intangibles, we've talked about the game being moved. The Rams probably would have had a pretty solid home field advantage at SoFi. I mean, I know they never really have a great home field advantage at SoFi. I mean, we've all seen games in Los Angeles over the years where the majority of the stadium is fans of the other team. I think this being the postseason, they would have had a significant home field advantage. But yeah, now that the things in Arizona, there's no real home field advantage to speak of. That and we talked about the Rams kind of ending the season on a hot streak or whatever. They had that game, and I think it was week 14 where they went back and forth with Buffalo, and they put up 44 points in that game against the Bills. In the 3 weeks that they played after that, in those 3 weeks combined, they put up a total of 44 points. But they still managed to win all 3 of those football games. Then they sat their starters for week 18, so that doesn't count. But, Drew's mentioned their early struggles on offense. And, this is one of those things where, Ted's talked about the distractions, the potential distractions. If the Vikings can get this rolling early, it could kind of snowball in their favor against the Rams here, I think. And, all in all, I think the Vikings want to get the monkey off their back. They don't want to be, they're already the first 14-3 wild card team. They don't want to be the first 14-3 wild card team to not win a playoff game. And this is where KOC shows who he is. And I think after last week in Detroit, they probably really sat down and put something solid together. And yeah, I think everything, particularly with the venue change, I think there are just too many things pointing in Minnesota's direction at this point. So I will give them the intangible check mark as well.
Smart. Can I address a message that came through?
Real quick, this is a good point, too. The Dinner Box Pro Wrestling says those wildfires could bring the team together and make them fight harder than ever. Those wildfires cut because that could cut both ways. Maybe they can compartmentalize, bring everybody together, and they go play like hell. Go ahead, Drew.
Ford Elliott, great friend for many years. That guy knows this football more than anybody pretty much I know besides you two. Ford Elliott mentioned sympathy calls down below, which happen in the NFL. They do happen. It's a great point to bring up.
Yep.
I knew he was going to bring it up because Ford always brings up all the intangibles for a football game. Ford Elliott is a very, very wise man. So I did look it up. We don't have that Trey Blake guy who missed the face mask. That crew sucked. We don't have him this week. We do not. So everybody ease your mind at that. We got the great John Hussey. Now, the only thing bad about John Hussey is he says, 5-yard penalty, 5-yard penalty. I can't stand his voice. Watch tonight when it's offsides or something. When he says 5-yard penalty, it makes me get angry. But the fact is, his crew is low on penalties called for the season of every crew in the NFL. 177. Good. Only called 177. The lead guy, which is some dude named Blake something, Balake, has like twice as much as that. This is the crew that calls the least amount of penalties. That's a good thing in a game like this because that you know what I'm saying. But I know what Ford means. Ford said I wouldn't doubt there's a couple sympathy calls tonight because of the fires, and I wouldn't doubt it.
Who's Balake's headlinesman? Aaron?
No,
Jaquan.
Break my foot off in your ass.
Jaquelin?
No, D nice. Mr. Shago Hesse? You mean Mr. Sean O'Hennessy? No, but that we got
very good point.
Hussey's crew tonight. They are, I don't know. They could call 20 penalties. I don't know, but if you go by just looking at week to week, they're the least penalty calling crew out there in the NFL. So
Dan Lee says it's not the same crew for the playoffs. They change crews, so they take it's like a quote unquote all-star crew.
Well, whatever. Then throw everything I just said out the window.
I will say as long as they call the game evenly. You talked about the Rams being handsy, the Rams secondary being handsy and grabby.
Right.
As long as they call it evenly and they don't favor one team over the other,
I agree.
I'm fine with that. And I don't care. That's fine. I will say, if that's the way the game is played, I'm good with it. If they obviously favor one team over the other, and they favor the Rams because of those hometown calls and what's going on in California, I think that's BS.
I do too.
And one other thing, everybody was picking the Chargers, and maybe it's just me, but the Chargers looked like they were not in it mentally against the Texans.
No.
Justin Herbert, I think, had his worst day as he threw 4 picks. Had his worst day as a pro. I don't know. I just look. These guys are human beings, just like we are. And if something like that was going on, and your family was affected like that, you would be distracted. I say that, and I hope everybody in the Rams organization, their families, and are safe and fine, and their homes are not damaged and all that stuff. But it's an issue. It just is, and it could potentially affect the team tonight when they play. So anyway,
my bomb clock went on the fritz. I have no idea. Do we have time for summaries? Do we have time left?
Yeah, we do. It's only 6:40. We got yeah. So
okay,
Drew, why don't you lead us off with a summary?
Okay, summary. I got some tasty tidbit summary right here, and it's not too overwhelmingly boring, but I'll try. My first note in here, guys, is this: KOC, you're the head coach, you're the offensive coordinator, you're both. If things starts going to hell, pull your quarterback aside and help him. He did not do that against the Lions. He just kept sending the same game plan out there every drive, and every drive was mounting worse and worse and worse, Chris Gates. He didn't change any of the game plan to help Sam Darnold with some short passes, get him some confidence. That's KOC's job. If things start going to hell in a handbasket, help your quarterback, for fuck's sake. Help him. That's my first thing I want to talk about. But the playoffs, everything is magnified, everything. Positive, negative, everything. So every mistake is, as you see by Tampa Bay, it'll shine like a diamond in a goat's ass, my uncle would say. Your mistakes are everything's magnified. And one thing Tom Brady talked about, I'm not sure what game Tom Brady did, but he talked about something very important. And who knows about playoffs compared to regular season more than Tom Brady? He said there's an emotional aspect, Ted, that drives into these games that is not like the regular season. Emotionally, everybody is wound up. It's just a different thing altogether. It's like Stanley Cup playoff hockey, Ted. It's different. It's just a different thing. And Tom Brady said this is different than he mentioned it a couple times during his broadcast, and I wrote it down as he was saying it, thinking, I want to bring that up on the show because the emotional aspect cannot be overlooked. And it can't be overlooked for what you were talking about the fires. There's emotions driving and all that. So the emotions, everything's magnified. Usually the teams that win these playoff games are the more teams that are more intense, the teams that are more focused, and the teams that are more physical. Those are the three things I've noticed in 50 years of playoff football. The physical teams seem to win more. They do. Like you said about the Chargers in Pittsburgh, they weren't physical out there. They were getting manhandled like they didn't want to be there. You can't be on that side. You can't. Mm-hmm. And the Rams, front seven, the Rams have a big chalkboard in their locker room saying, pressure Sam Darnold and we win. I'm telling you, it all comes down to that. That's all they care about is getting Sam Darnold off his game. Because if Sam Darnold's off his game, nothing's going to happen. That is basically where I'm at. And my last item on my summary is fast start, Ted. The Rams are 31st. They average 1.8 points in the first quarter. They're terrible in the first quarter. The Vikings need to jump out to the first quarter lead and set the tone, and get it done and make it happen. But I like the Vikings tonight. I really do. I got a good feel that they're going to come out and they're really, really going to play well. So that's my summary. Go Vikings.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, like Drew said, if the Vikings can keep Sam Darnold protected, keep Sam Darnold upright, they have every reason to go out and win this football game. I think the venue change is going to be a bigger issue than a lot of people think it's going to be. I don't know if the Rams' heads are going to be completely in this one or not, but yeah, the Vikings are favored in this one. The Vikings probably should be favored to win this one if they can if they can keep their quarterback upright and get to Matthew Stafford, they're going to win this football game. And yeah, that's all I can say about it.
I'm not sure what's going to happen. I really don't. If the Vikings, if Sam Darnold last week was a one-off game, I think the Vikings win. If this moment proves too big for Sam Darnold, like it was last week, Vikings aren't going to win.
Good point.
It's that simple. I mean, it's just that simple. When you look at last week's game, Sam Darnold overthrew his receivers on almost every single pass he made. And there were dudes that were wide open. And if he makes those throws, and we talked about the red zone earlier, I think it was either Akers or Aaron Jones that was wide open down on the goal line. Jordan Addison was wide open in the end zone down on the goal line. He makes those throws in weeks 1 through 17. Those are touchdowns. He missed TJ Hawkinson several times wide open over the middle, who would still be running if he had caught those passes and if he makes those throws during the season. If Sam Darnold can play his game, you heard Herb Brooks or Kurt Russell playing Herb Brooks in the movie Miracle. Play your game. If the Vikings play their game, they will win. If they do not, they will lose. It's that simple. And I think they will. And Drew, it's up to KOC to get Sam Darnold settled down. And if you can play your game, they will win. They should be favored. I think they're the better team for a lot of different reasons. But it's up to the Vikings to go out tonight and prove they are the better team.
That's a big. It's playoff time. It's time to prove yourself. You had that playoff game against the Giants and you pissed the bed. You got to. This is a different. Brady said it right, man. This is a different animal, and I don't care how many games you won against Jacksonville. This is what it's all about. You got to beat the good teams. They're all good from here on out. And
you can't play a Jacksonville game in the playoffs and win. You can't.
You can't. We played a Jacksonville game last week and we saw what happened.
Yep.
They have to come out and they have to be focused and they have to get it done. Let's not forget, we gave that game away to the Rams in October. They had 5 penalties. The Rams did, Chris, where they got possession back from the football. We gave them 5 first downs on penalty. 5.
Just a second here, Pat. I gotta dip out. I gotta go take care of some things before the game starts here. So we'll see you after the game.
All right, Chris. Well, we're gonna wrap it up anyway. So
that was like 5 turnovers, Ted.
Yeah, it was.
When you give them a first down because of a penalty, that's like a turnover, even though it's not technically, it is. So don't give it away. Don't give it away.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up. It's 7 minutes before the ESPN Monday Night pregame starts. My grandson's showing up anyways. We're gonna watch the game together, and we will be back just a few minutes after the game for a quick post game, where hopefully the Vikings will be moving on to the divisional round. For Chris, for Drew, for Ruby, no prize night. We will have a prize in the post game.
Come back for the post game. Come on, come back.
We'll have a live post game show. Skol Vikings. We'll see you after the game, everybody.
Mau Mau.